Close your eyes and allow yourself to drift back in time. We are stepping gently into a story that is not hurried, not rushed. A story that moves as steadily as nightfall itself. For as long as humans have walked this earth, we have needed rest. Sleep has always been the great equalizer. A quiet frontier between waking and dreaming, between effort and renewal. And across the vast history of human civilization, cultures developed their own rituals, their own careful habits, to prepare the mind and the body for rest. In this journey, we will explore how three of the most fascinating civilizations, the the Greeks, and the Chinese, welcomed sleep. Not as a mere biological necessity, but as a sacred ritual, woven into religion, philosophy, medicine, and daily life. We begin, as the setting sun once did, on the warm banks of the ancient Nile. Egypt, where sleep met the sacred imagine, the desert air cooling after a day of relentless sunlight. The Nile glitters under the dimming sky, its waters moving quietly toward the Mediterranean. Life in ancient Egypt followed the rhythm of the river, planting and harvesting, feasting and fasting, working and resting. And in this rhythm, nighttime was not an interruption, but a continuation of the sacred order of life. For Egyptians, sleep was never merely closing the eyes. It was a bridge to the divine. Dreams, in particular, were believed to carry messages from the gods. The very act of sleeping was infused with meaning. Before bed, ordinary Egyptians often washed themselves. Water was more than physical cleanliness, it was symbolic purity. To cleanse the body was to prepare it for communion with the unseen. The wealthy might use scented oils, rubbed onto their skin, allowing the soft fragrance of lotus, or myrrh, to accompany them into rest. These oils were believed not only to soothe the senses, but to invite divine favor. The beds themselves tell us something important. The rich slept on raised wooden frames, sometimes curved gently upward to support the body. A headrest, often made of stone, wood, or ivory, replaced what we think of as a pillow. These headrests lifted the skull, keeping elaborate hairstyles intact. But they also had spiritual associations. By raising the head, one invited protection from harm during the vulnerable hours of sleep. The common folk, of course, did not have such luxuries. Many simply slept on mats of woven reeds laid upon the ground. But, ibener, there was intense reeds had cleansing associations, keeping away snakes and insects. Ritual words were often whispered before closing the eyes. A prayer might be offered to Bes, the dwarf-like household god who guarded against nightmares and evil spirits. Children, especially, were thought to be under Bes's protection at night. Amulets carved with his grinning face sometimes hung near sleeping spaces. And in the temples, sleep could be something more than rest. Priests practiced what we now call dream incubation ritual, in which one slept inside a temple, hoping for divine visions. A sick person might lie down in a sacred chamber, waiting for the god of healing to appear in dreams with guidance. In this way, sleep was not idle. It was a sacred practice of listening to the hidden world. Night after night, generation after generation, Egyptians slipped into this world between waking and dreaming, carrying with them oil, prayer, and the quiet trust that sleep was itself a kind of sacred voyage. Greece, philosophy of sleep now. Let the Nile fade from your mind and drift across the Mediterranean. We find ourselves in ancient Greece, where the sea hums softly and marble cities glow faintly under torchlight. For the Greeks, sleep was more than rest. It was a philosophical question. What happens to the soul when the body lies still? Why do dreams arrive like plays on the inner stage of the mind? In mythology, sleep was personified as Hypnos, a gentle god, twin brother to Thanatos, the god of death. From this pairing came the Greek belief that sleep was like a cousin to death, not unending, but a soft rehearsal. When Greeks lay down to rest, they sometimes thought of themselves as entering Hypnos' domain, wrapped in his soft, dark cloak. The rituals of preparation reflected both practicality and philosophy. After the day's meals, many Greeks believed in the balance of body and spirit. Heavy foods were avoided late in the day. Instead, a light evening meal was taken, often with bread, olives, or figs. Physicians like Hippocrates advised against overeating before sleep, noting that digestion could disturb the peace of the night. Physical comfort mattered, too. Wealthy Greeks had beds with wooden frames and woven supports, layered with blankets of wool or linen. The poor might lie on simple pallets of straw. Yet even a ritual crept in. Before rest, lamps were extinguished with care, often accompanied by short words of thanks to Hest, goddess of the hearth, for the safety of fire and home. Like the Egyptians, the Greeks also turned to sleep for healing. Entire sanctuaries were built for Asclepius, the god of medicine. Here, patients underwent incubation rituals, lying down in sacred chambers to await healing dreams. Priests recorded these dreams carefully, searching for signs of divine instruction. Imagine lying on a temple floor, breathing in the faint scent of burning incense, listening to the hush of the night, waiting for the god of healing to whisper in your dreams. And beyond ritual, there was philosophy. Plato and Aristotle both spoke of sleep. Aristotle described it as the cooling of the body, a natural slowing that allowed the mind to rest. Plato, ever curious about the soul, saw dreams as a place where the hidden parts of the mind emerged. Thus, to sleep was not only to rest, it was to encounter truths from within. As Greeks closed their eyes at night, they lay not only on straw or wool, but on a foundation of myth and philosophy. Sleep was a nightly voyage into mystery, a moment when hypnos touched the soul, carrying it into realms unseen. China, harmony and rest. Now, let us journey farther east, across mountains and steppes, until we arrive in ancient China. Here, sleep was not primarily divine or philosophic lit, was medical, practical, and deeply tied to the rhythms of yin and yang. Chinese traditions, especially those influenced by Taoist and early medical thought, taught that sleep was part of maintaining harmony with the cosmos. The body was seen as a small reflection of the universe. To sleep well was to align oneself with natural forces. Preparation for sleep often included rituals of balance. Food was eaten according to principles of harmony. Warm broths or rice might be taken in the evening, avoiding extremes of spice or coldness that could disturb the inner balance. Gentle teas, often herbal, soothed the body. Sleeping arrangements reflected both simplicity and symbolism. Wooden platforms with woven mats were common. In wealthier homes, silk bedding was used, soft against the skin, thought to regulate warmth and coolness. The positioning of the bed was also important. Many believed it should not face north, for fear of disturbing the alignment of Qi, the life force. Taoist traditions encouraged meditation or breathing exercises before rest. A person might sit quietly, allowing the breath to slow, the mind to empty, before lying down. This calming ritual mirrored the Taoist idea of returning to stillness, becoming like water, flowing effortlessly into the state of sleep. Dreams, too, were important. In Chinese thought, dreams could reveal imbalances in the body or warnings from the spirit world. Some medical texts even recorded specific dreams as signs of illness or health. If one dreamed of fire, for example, it might suggest too much heat in the body. If one dreamed of water, perhaps the opposite. Thus, sleep was not only restorative, it was diagnostic, a nightly check-in with the hidden energies of life. And always, surrounding these rituals, was the steady sense that sleep was part of the greater order. Just as day turns to night, just as summer gives way to winter, so too must the body find its rhythm in rest. To sleep was to harmonize with the Tao, to join the great breathing of the universe. So now, we have walked softly through the nighttime worlds of Egypt, Greece, and China. We have seen sacred oils, template dreams, philosophical musings, and quiet breathing before rest. And this is only the beginning. In the next part of our story, we will dive more deeply into the details of Egyptian dream temples, Greek philosophical debates about sleep, and Chinese medical writings that guided nighttime rituals. For now, allow your own eyes to grow heavier, as though Hypnos himself has brushed his cloak around your shoulders. Let us return once more to the land of Egypt, where the desert sand still holds the warmth of the day, and the night sky stretches endlessly overhead. The people of this land believed that sleep was more than mere rest. It was a bridge to the divine. Among the most intriguing of their rituals was the practice of temple sleep, or what historians call dream incubation. Imagine stepping quietly into a grand temple, its columns rising high, painted with scenes of gods and symbols of eternity. The air is heavy with incense. The glow of oil lamps flickers on carved walls, and silence wraps around you like a cloak. Here, people came not simply to worship, but to sleep. The Egyptians believed that the gods could speak through dreams. Ordinary dreams at home might carry messages, but to truly seek guidance, one had to prepare ritually, carefully, and with reverence. The seeker, perhaps someone troubled by illness, grief, or uncertainty, would begin with purification. Bathing in the sacred waters of the Nile, or within temple basins, they washed away not only dust, but also spiritual impurities. Afterward, offerings were given: bread, fruit, incense, or small figurines left at the feet of statues. Then, Guided by priests, the seeker entered a special chamber known as a serapeum, or a healing room. The floor might be cool stone, perhaps softened by woven mats. Some chambers were underground, carved deep into temple foundations, where silence was absolute and darkness complete. Here, the sleeper lay down, hoping that during the night, a god would appear in a dream. Often it was Imhotep, the deified architect and physician, who was sought for healing. His temples became centers of dream healing. Those who came believed Imhotep could whisper cures in sleep, sometimes directly, sometimes symbolically, through dream imagery. When morning came, priests listened carefully to the dream. Every detail mattered. The color of clothing, the animals seen, the words spoken. A dream of water might mean purification was needed. A dream of a serpent might signify both danger and healing, for snakes shed their skin, symbolizing renewal. Outside the temples, in the homes of ordinary Egyptians, nightly sleep also carried its rituals. We must imagine families settling in for rest. Lamps were dimmed, small clay vessels of oil flickering until they were gently blown out. Beds of woven reeds or wooden frames were prepared. At the head of the bed, a headrest waited. Unlike the soft pillows we know today, this was a carved object stone, ivory, or wood curved gently to hold the head. It may not sound comfortable to us, but for Egyptians, it served a dual purpose, supporting elaborate hairstyles and protecting the sleeper. Headdress often bore inscriptions or carvings. Some were decorated with images of protective deities, like Base or Tia, the goddess shaped like a hippopotamus who guarded women and children. To rest one's head upon such an object was not simply practical, it was an act of faith, trusting the god carved into its surface to watch over the soul through the vulnerable hours of night. Amulets, too, were common companions for sleep. A child might wear a charm around the neck, carved in faience or semi-precious stone, designed to ward off nightmares. The image of Base, grinning wide with his leonine features, was a popular guardian. His very ugliness was a form of protection, frightening away harmful spirits. Even fragrance was part of ritual. Egyptians loved the scent of lotus blossoms, myrrh, and frankincense. Small cones of perfumed wax were sometimes placed upon wigs or hair, melting slowly through the evening, releasing soothing aromas. Imagine drifting to sleep with a faint sweetness of lotus in the air, believing that such fragrance connected you more closely to the divine. In Egyptian thought, sleep was closely tied to the soul. The Ba, often represented as a bird with a human head, was believed to leave the body during the night, traveling freely between the worlds of the living and the dead. Dreams, then, were the experiences of the Ba on its nightly journey. This made sleep both precious and precarious. To sleep was to allow the soul to wander, but it was also to risk danger, for the wandering soul could be harmed. Protective rituals, amulets, prayers, purifications were designed not only to invite divine guidance, but also to ensure that the Ba returned safely to the body upon waking. Thus, when an Egyptian lay down at night, they did so with a sense of reverence. They were not merely closing their eyes, they were stepping into the vastness of the unseen, where gods whispered, where souls traveled, and where the boundary between life and death grew thin. Let us picture the quiet of an Egyptian household at night. The day's work, farming, trading, crafting has ended. The air is cooler now, the harsh heat soft. Families gather around a simple meal, perhaps bread baked from emmer wheat, dates for sweetness, and beer brewed from barley. Afterward, children are soothed, stories are told, and lamps flicker. As darkness settles, one by one, the family members lie down. Perhaps a child clutches an amulet of Base, while a mother whispers a prayer to tower it for safety. A father stretches out on a reed mat, head resting on a curved support, while the air still carries the faint fragrance of incense burned earlier in honor of the household gods. Slowly, the house grows still. Outside, the Nile moves with its eternal rhythm, carrying both life and mystery. Inside, dreams begin to bloom. Perhaps the gods will speak tonight. Perhaps the soul will wander far. But always, the rituals, the oils, the amulets, the prayers are there, soft guardians at the threshold of sleep. And so, in Egypt, sleep was never ordinary. It was holy, mysterious, and filled with intention. The night held both risk and promise, and through ritual, Egyptians sought to shape their passage through it. In the next part of our journey, we will cross the sea again to explore how the Greeks not only practiced sleep rituals, but also debated them, argued over them, and wove them into their philosophy of life. The torchlight flickers on marble walls, A cool breeze carries the scent of olive trees across a quiet courtyard. Somewhere in the distance, the sea whispers against the shore. This is the setting of ancient Greece, a world of poets, philosophers, and myth. And here, too, the night was never taken lightly. For the Greeks, sleep was not only a biological need but also a subject of myth and philosophy. It was personified, studied, and debated. Each night, when eyes closed and breath slowed, the Greeks felt themselves stepping into the realm of Hypnos, the god of sleep. In mythology, Hypnos was a gentle figure. Artists imagined him as a youthful god with soft wings upon his temples, moving silently through the world, touching mortals and gods alike into slumber. His cave was said to be hidden in a dark, quiet place where the sun never reached, surrounded by poppies and flowing waters that lulled all who approached. But Hypnos was not alone. His twin brother was Thanatos, the god of peaceful death. Their kinship reflected an ancient belief that sleep and death were close cousins. To fall asleep was to practice softly for the great rest that comes at life's end. Hypnos' sons were the Onaroi, the spirits of dreams. 3 were most famous: Morpheus, who shaped human forms in dreams; Phobetar, who sent images of animals; and Phantasos, who brought visions of inanimate things like stone or water. Every dream, then, was the work of these divine messengers. Each time a Greek lay down to sleep, they were stepping into the theater of the Oneroi, guided by gods who painted visions upon the canvas of the mind. In the home, sleep carried its own gentle rituals. After the evening meal, lamps were tended carefully. Oil lamps, fueled with olive oil, glowed softly. Before extinguishing them, many Greeks whispered thanks to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. To honor her flame was to honor safety, family, and the peace of the home. Wealthier families slept on beds, built from wooden frames, supported with rope or leather thongs woven into a net. Obertais basse mattresses filled with wool or feathers were laid. Linen sheets and woolen blankets offered warmth in winter, while in summer, lighter coverings were used. The poor often slept on simple pallets, stuffed with straw, but even these were prepared with care. Before the rest, some might rub oil onto their skin, olive oil mixed with herbs, or send soothing mussels after a day's labor. Others might sip diluted wine, a common practice believed to relax the body without dulling the mind. In every case, the aim was balance: a settled body, a quiet mind. Children were told myths at bedtime, not unlike stories we tell today. Tales of heroes, gods, and clever animals filled the imagination, bridging the waking world with the dream world to come. Like the Egyptians, the Greeks saw dreams as a path to healing. Temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine, became centers of ritual sleep. Pilgrims traveled from across the Greek world to these sanctuaries, seeking cures for illnesses of body and spirit. Upo Naribal, the pilgrim bathed to cleanse themselves. They offered sacrifices, often small cakes, honey, or the blood of animals for entering the sacred sleeping chambers, known as Abat. These chambers were designed for quiet and darkness, encouraging deep rest. There, the sleeper hoped for a dream in which Asclepius himself appeared, offering advice, a vision of herbs, or instructions for healing rituals. If the god did not appear directly, symbolic dreams were interpreted by priests trained in the art. A dream of water might mean purification was needed. A dream of snakes, a symbol often associated with Asclepius, could mean transformation and renewal. At dawn, the dream was told aloud, carefully recorded, and sometimes even inscribed on stone tablets so that others might learn from it. In this way, sleep was both personal and communal. The healing of one became part of the wisdom of all. But the Greeks were not content with ritual alone. They were seekers of reason, and they asked, what is sleep? Why do we dream? Aristotle, ever the observer, studied sleep as part of natural science. He believed it was caused by the cooling of the body's warmth during digestion, a natural slowing of life's functions. For him, sleep was a physical necessity, not a divine mystery. Plato, on the other hand, was fascinated by dreams. He suggested that dreams revealed hidden desires of the soul. In waking life, reason and discipline guided human action, but in sleep, the barriers fell. Dreams were the stage where passions and suppressed thoughts emerged. Thus, Plato advised cultivating virtue in waking life, so that even in dreams, the soul would remain pure. Later thinkers continued the discussion. Some believed dreams foretold the future, messages from beyond. Others argued they were random flickers of the imagination. But always, the conversation was calm, thoughtful, and woven into the rhythm of nightly life. Imagine, then, the end of a Greek day. In the countryside, farmers return from fields of wheat and olive trees. In cities, artisans finish their work, and philosophers conclude their debates. As evening falls, torches glow against marble walls, and families gather for a modest meal. Later, lamps are dimmed, offerings whispered to the household gods. Children fall asleep to tales of Heracles or Odysseus. Parents stretch out upon wool-filled mattresses, the air still carrying the scent of olive oil and bread baked earlier in the day. Outside, cicadas sing. Waves murmur against the shore, and the stars wheel slowly across the night sky. In this setting, sleep arrives as both necessity and mystery. To close one's eyes is to trust Hypnos, to accept his gift, and to step gently into the world of dreams, shaped by the honor. Thus, in Greece, sleep was honored in myth, nurtured in ritual, and questioned in philosophy. It was practical and divine, personal and communal. Each night carried the possibility of healing, insight, or simply the soft comfort of Hypnos' embrace. In the next part of our journey, we will wander east once more to ancient China, where sleep was less about gods and more about balance, harmony, and the flowing rhythms of life. The night deepens, and our journey carries us across mountains, deserts, and rivers, until we arrive in the ancient land of China. Here, the philosophy of sleep was not woven primarily with mythic gods or philosophical debates about the soul. Instead, it was deeply tied to the rhythms of nature, the balance of yin and yang, and the flowing life energy known as qi. For the Chinese, sleep was not simply the body's rested, it was the restoration of harmony within the self, aligning the microcosm of the human being with the greater cosmos. In Chinese thought, everything in the universe was shaped by the interplay of yin and yang. Yin was the dark, the cool, the receptive. Yang was the bright, the warm, the active. Day was yang, and night was yang. To sleep well, one had to respect this natural order. To resist it was to create imbalance. Thus, the ideal rhythm was simple: rise with the sun, sleep when the darkness deepened. Those who stayed awake too late, straining their eyes by lamplight or burning their energy with chatter, were thought to disrupt the natural harmony of yin and yang within their own body. In this way, bedtime was more than habit, it was a way of aligning oneself with the turning of heaven and earth, the stars above, the phases of the moon, the cycle of day and night all were reflected in the quiet act of lying down to sleep. Ancient Chinese medical texts, such as the Huangdi Najing, the Yellow Emperor Essay, Inner Kano Ine, offered detailed instructions about sleep. According to this text, sleep was essential for nourishing the blood and replenishing qi. Without proper rest, the body's internal organs could fall out of balance, leading to illness. The timing of sleep mattered, too. The night was divided into watches, and each part of the night was linked to specific organs. For example, deep rest during the hours between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. was believed to be crucial for the gallbladder. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., the liver was said to renew itself. To miss sleep during these hours was to weaken these vital organs. Thus, going to bed early was not only sensible, but also medical. Physicians advised patients to let their rest follow the body's clock, syncing with the quiet rhythms of nature. The rituals of preparation were gentle and practical. In the evening, heavy foods were avoided, for an overworked stomach was thought to disturb the heart and prevent peaceful dreams. Instead, rice porridge, steamed vegetables, or light broths were common. Herbal Thais infusions of chrysanthemum, lotus seed, or jujube fruit soothed the mind and calmed the body. Bathing also played a role. A warm wash, sometimes with herbal water, relaxed muscles and cleansed away the day's dust. In Taoist traditions, washing before bed also symbolized the purification of spirit, a return to stillness. Before lying down, many practiced breathing exercises. Quiet inhalations and exhalations, slow and deep, were thought to settle qi. Some Taoist practitioners sat in meditation, still and silent, allowing thoughts to dissolve. This calmness was carried into bed, so that sleep could arrive smoothly, like a leaf floating onto water. Sleeping arrangements were simple, yet thoughtful. Wooden platforms were common, topped with woven mats. Wealthier families used soft silk bedding, prized not only for comfort, but also for its ability to regulate temperature, cool in summer, warm in winter. The placement of the bed mattered greatly. According to principles that later came to be known as feng shui, the orientation of the bed could influence sleep. Bed should not face directly north, lest the qi flow becomes stagnant. Sleeping under exposed beams or with feet pointing toward the door was avoided, for these positions were believed to disturb the spirit during rest. The bedroom itself was kept uncluttered, calm, and harmonious. To sleep in disorder was to invite disorder into the body in dreams. Thus, the environment mirrored the inner goal: stillness, balance, and renewal. Dreams were carefully noted. In Chinese tradition, they were often seen as reflections of inner balance or imbalance. A dream of fire might signal excess heat in the body. A dream of floods could suggest weakness in the kidneys. Physicians used dreams as diagnostic tools, treating them as signals of the hidden state of the body's qi. At the same time, Taoist thought opened another door: the possibility that dreams allowed the spirit to wander, traveling beyond the body into other realms. Some Taoist adepts practiced dream wandering, cultivating lucid dreams to seek knowledge or spiritual experiences. In this way, dreams were not only health signals, but also opportunities for deeper exploration of reality. Imagine, now, a household in ancient China at the close of day. Farmers return from fields of millet and rice. Artisans lay down their tools. Families gather for a warm meal of rice, broth, and vegetables. Afterward, tea is sipped slowly. Lanterns are lit, and the sounds of the night rise: the chirping of crickets, the distant bark of a dog, the rustling of bamboo leaves in the wind. As bedtime approaches, mats are laid, bedding straightened. A father may guide his children in quiet breathing exercises, teaching them how to let the body grow calm. A mother might hum a soft tune, or recite a short verse of poetry, soothing the little ones into slumber. Gradually, the household falls quiet. Lanterns are extinguished, leaving only the moon's glow through paper windows. Breath slows. The rhythm of yin rises. The body, aligned with heaven and earth, drifts into harmony. Thus, in ancient China, sleep was not only physical rest, but also cosmic balance. It was a time to replenish qi, to realign yin and yang, to let the body heal in harmony with the universe. Night was not feared. It was welcomed as a partner in health and wholeness. In the next part of our journey, we will pause and compare, placing side by side the rituals of Egypt, Greece, and China, to see how these cultures agreed and how they differed in their reverence for sleep. We have wandered along the Nile, crossed the blue Aegean, and followed the quiet rivers of China. Each civilization, Egypt, Greece, and China, had its own way of welcoming sleep. And yet, when we pause to compare them, we see something profound: that sleep, though universal, was shaped by culture, belief, and philosophy into very different rituals. Let us lay them side by side, gently, as though arranging 3 scrolls upon a quiet table. In Egypt, sleep was a spiritual passage. To lie down was to prepare for contact with the gods. Dreams were messages, sometimes direct, sometimes veiled in symbols, and they were taken seriously. Temples offered special places where the faithful sought divine visions for guidance or healing. The physical arrangements, the reed mats, the carved headrests, the protective amulazzo, spoke of a culture that saw sleep as fragile and sacred. The soul itself, the Ba, was believed to wander in the night, and it required protection to return safely by morning. Thus, ritual was defense, prayers, charms, fragrances, all woven into the nighttime routine. Egyptian nights were nights of vigilance and faith. Sleep was holy, but also dangerous, for the soul stepped into the unseen. In Greece, sleep was a mystery of the mind. It was hypnos esklok, a nightly kinship with death, and yet it was also an opportunity for inquiry. Why did we dream? What did it mean? Was it divine prophecy, or simply the soul revealing its hidden passions? The Greeks balanced myth and philosophy. On one side, the rituals of Asclepius' temples, where dreams healed the body. On the other, the rational investigations of philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, who tried to explain sleep in natural terms. Practical habits supported rest-light meals, extinguished lamps, soft woolen blankets. But around these simple acts spun a web of myth, poetry, and debate. For the Greeks, sleep was not merely recovery, it was a subject of thought, a nightly reminder of life's mysteries. In China, sleep was a matter of harmony and health. The body was a small universe, reflecting the great universe outside. To sleep was to restore balance, to let yin and yang find their rhythm again. Here the rituals were medical and philosophical at once. Herbal teas to soothe the body, breathing exercises to quiet the mind, careful attention to timing so that the body's organs could heal during the right hours of night. Dreams were both medical signals and spiritual journeys, sometimes diagnostic, sometimes transcended. The environment mattered too. Beds were placed with care, avoiding positions thought to disturb Qi. Disorder in the room meant disorder in the spirit. Calmness in the chamber meant calmness in the soul. Thus, in China, sleep was harmony embodied, not divine communion, not philosophical puzzle, but a practice of alignment with nature, shared threads. And yet, for all their differences, these three civilizations shared important threads: ritual and intention. Whether through Egyptian prayers, Greek lamps, or Chinese breathing exercises, none of these cultures approached sleep casually. Each treated it as a meaningful transition, worthy of preparation. Dreams as guidance. In Egypt, they were divine messages. In Greece, they were the work of the onaroi, or signs of the soul's inner state. In China, they reflected health or imbalance. In every case, dreams mattered. Sleep was not silent. It spoke. The vulnerability of night. All three cultures acknowledged that sleep left one exposed. The Egyptians guarded against spirits with amulets. The Greeks linked sleep with death, a reminder of fragility. The Chinese cautioned against improper alignment or imbalance that could disturb health. Nighttime was precious, but never trivial. Yet, the tone of each civilization's approach was distinct. Egyptian sleep was filled with reverence and awe, a nightly step into sacred realms. Greek sleep was full of curiosity and questioning, a puzzle for the mind as well as a gift of hypnosis. Chinese sleep was about balance and care, a gentle folding into the rhythms of heaven and earth. These differences reflect not only beliefs about sleep, but also the broader character of each culture. The Egyptian devotion to the divine order, the Greek passion for philosophy and myth, the Chinese commitment to harmony and health. Let us imagine, just for a moment, what it would feel like if these three cultures shared a single night. The Egyptian lights incense, whispers a prayer to base, and places an amulet at the bedside. The Greek enjoys a light supper, extinguishes the lamp with thanks to Hestia, and wonders if hypnosis will bring a healing dream. The Chinese drinks a warm cup of herbal tea, practices quiet breathing, and lies down with bed carefully oriented to the flow of Qi. And though they are separated by rivers, seas, and mountains, all three drift into the same human mystery. The stillness of sleep, their bodies slow, their minds enter dream, and for a few hours, they share what all humans share: the journey inward, the healing of night. The body rests, but the mind continues to wander. For the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Chinese alike, dreams were not empty illusions. They were whispers, sometimes from the gods, sometimes from the soul, sometimes from the body itself. To understand them was to understand life more deeply. In ancient Egypt, dreams were sacred. Entire temples were devoted to the practice of dream incubation, seeking visions as messages from the divine. A person in need of guidance, or suffering from illness, might travel to such a temple. There, after ritual cleansing, prayers, and offerings, they would lie down upon a mat or bench within the holy space, asking the gods to visit them in their dreams. Priests acted as interpreters, helping to decode the symbols. An Egyptian who dreamed of water might be told it represented rebirth or purification. To see certain animals, a falcon, a cat, a crocodile, was to touch the realm of specific gods. Dreams were bridges, connecting the human with the divine. Even in daily life, families kept dream books, collections of meanings attached to common visions. A dream of light was fortunate. A dream of darkness carried warnings. To wake with a dream was to carry a message from the night, and to ignore it was unwise. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks also revered dreams, though their explanations varied. In myth, dreams were children of Nyx, the night. Among them were Morpheus, who shaped dreams of human form; Phobetar, who brought dreams of animals; and Phantasos, who conjured visions of the inanimate world. Collectively, they were the onaroi shadows who entered the mind through gates of horn or ivory. In practice, Greek temples of Asclepius offered dream healing much like the Egyptians. A person in need of cure would sleep within the temple, hoping that God would reveal a treatment in dream form. Philosophers, however, added new layers. Aristotle argued that dreams were not divine, but rather the result of sensory impressions lingering in the body. Plato considered them reflections of the soul's desires, hidden during waking hours. Thus, Greek thought balanced myth and reason. Dreams were both messages from gods and natural expressions of the mind attention that shaped centuries of Western philosophy. In China, dreams were woven into the philosophy of health and balance. To dream was to see the movements of the inner world. If a person dreamed of fire, it might suggest imbalance in the heart. If one dreamed of wandering or floating, it could reflect the state of the soul in relation to Qi. Dreams also had a spiritual dimension. Taoist traditions describe journeys of the soul, where the sleeper could travel beyond the body, exploring realms invisible to waking eyes. Dreams were both diagnostic and mystical. Chinese dream books, too, offered interpretations, but always with an eye to harmony and imbalance. A troubling dream might inspire changes in diet, environment, or behavior. A pleasant dream might confirm that one was living in balance with the Tao. Dreams as healing and warning. Though separated by culture, all three civilizations treated dreams as important guides. For the Egyptians, they were direct voices of the gods. For the Greeks, they were divine or natural, depending on the thinker. For the Chinese, they were signals of health and spirit. In every case, dreams were not dismissed. They were taken seriously, integrated into medicine, religion, and philosophy. The gentle mystery of night. Imagine the scene. An Egyptian lies within a temple chamber, incense smoke curling upward, waiting for the gods to speak and dream. A Greek supplicant rests beneath the stars near Asclepius' shrine, hoping for a healing vision. A Chinese scholar lies on his carefully placed bed, reflecting on the harmony of his body and spirit, ready to see what the night reveals. 3 different cultures, 3 different nights, yet each shares the quiet awe of waiting for dreams. What makes this especially calming to consider is the universality. No matter where one was born, no matter the language spoken, dreams were seen as a bridge beyond the ordinary. They offered glimpses into realms unseen, whether divine, psychological, or natural. And so, across time, people have gone to bed not only to rest, but to listen to the silent messages that come in sleep, to find meaning in the visions of the night. As you drift with these thoughts, imagine your own dreams as part of this long history. Each night, when you sleep, you join a tradition that has fascinated humans for thousands of years. Your dreams, too, are part of this mystery. When we think of sleep today, we may imagine mattresses, pillows, curtains, or soft light. But in the ancient world, the environment of sleep was different, simpler in some ways, richer in others. To understand how Egyptians, Greeks, and Chinese rested, we must picture the very spaces where they closed their eyes. In Egypt, homes were built of mud brick, their walls thick to keep out the desert heat. By day, the roofs offered relief from the sun. By night, the same roofs often became sleeping places, cool and airy beneath the stars. Inside the home, beds were symbols of status. The wealthiest Egyptians owned raised wooden frames, often inlaid with ivory or decorated with carvings. These were not flat like our modern beds. They often sloped, with the head higher than the feet, and used carved headrests instead of pillows. The poor, by contrast, often slept on red mats laid across the floor. And yet, whether grand or humble, both rich and poor paid attention to sleep's sacredness. Amulets might be placed near the bed, protective images painted or carved nearby. In this way, even the simplest space became infused with spiritual care. Greek houses, especially in the classical period, were designed with inner courtyards. By day, these open spaces were filled with light. By night, they became quiet sanctuaries, where families gathered or retreated to their chambers. Beds were usually wooden frames, strung with leather thongs and covered with blankets of wool or linen. The wealthy might have pillows stuffed with feathers, while the poor relied on folded cloths. Oil lamps lit the rooms, their flames casting long, flickering shadows. Before sleep, these lamps were often extinguished, not only to save oil, but to ensure safety. A glowing ember was comfort, an open flame, danger. Silence was not always guaranteed. Dogs barked, donkeys brayed, neighbors whispered through thin walls. Yet, the Greeks accepted these sounds as part of the rhythm of communal life. Sleep was found in the midst of it all, as natural as the sea's tide. In China, sleep environments carried deep significance. Placement mattered. A bed was not only a piece of furniture, it was a vessel of balance. To sleep with one's head pointing the wrong way, or with the bed positioned against unlucky directions, was to invite beds could be ornate, especially for the wealthy, with canopies and curtains. These curtains were not merely decoration, they offered warmth in winter and privacy in shared households. For poorer families, sleep might be taken on mats or simple raised platforms. The air was scented with herbs or incense, chosen for their calming effects. Some families placed charms or painted protective symbols on the walls. A quiet bedchamber was believed to foster harmony in the body's ki, while clutter or noise might disturb not only the mind, but also the spirit. the common elements, despite their differences, certain patterns emerge. Elevation, beds, in all three cultures, when available, were often raised from the ground. This kept sleepers away from dirt, insects, and cold drafts. Textiles, wool, linen, reeds, and mats created comfort and warmth, adapted to local climates. Symbols of protection, whether amulets in Egypt, household gods in Greece, or charms in China, each culture placed guardianship around the sleeper. Attention to air and light, Egyptians sought cool air on rooftops. Greeks controlled lamps and flames. Chinese shaped the atmosphere with incense. Across civilizations, people sought the same thing. Not only a surface to lie upon, but an environment of safety, comfort, and peace. Night sounds and stillness, imagine it now. In Egypt, the faint rustle of palms and the distant cry of a nightbird. In Greece, the murmurs of the courtyard fading, replaced by the hum of cicadas. In China, the soft crackle of an oil lamp extinguished, the whisper of wind through lattice windows. Each environment shaped sleep, yet all offered a rhythm of stillness. The night was not silent, but it was soothing. Its sounds a lullaby of the world itself. To picture these environments is to feel how deeply people have always longed for safe, comfortable rest. Though the materials differed, mats, woolen blankets, carved canopies, the intention is the same. Across centuries and continents, humans have shaped their homes to protect the fragile gift of sleep. For Egyptians, Greeks, and Chinese alike, sleep was never just a sudden act of lying down. It was prepared for, surrounded by gestures, some humble, some elaborate, that created a bridge between waking and dreaming. These rituals before bed reveal how each culture understood the transition into night. The Egyptians often ended their days with purification. A simple washing of hands and feet was not only practical in the dusty climate, but also spiritual. Cleanliness prepared the body for communion with the gods. Fragrant oils played an important role. Drops of myrrh or lotus essence were rubbed on the skin, calming the body and pleasing the senses. In wealthier households, servants might fan the sleeper, cooling them in the desert heat. Prayers were whispered to household gods, or protective amulets placed nearby. Mothers might murmur charms for children, asking the deity Vista, fierce yet kindly dwarf god, to keep nightmares away. In this way, the Egyptian night began with both sensation and devotion. Oils for the body, prayers for the soul. The Greeks valued moderation, and their evening routines reflected this. Heavy meals were avoided, for they believed a burdened stomach disturbed rest. Instead, a light supper of bread, fruit, or cheese often sufficed. Lamps were carefully tended. Too much light was wasteful. Too little left one in darkness before preparations were complete. Families spoke quietly in courtyards, finishing their conversations before retreating indoors. Before lying down, some Greeks offered small libations, drops of wine poured to household gods, a token of gratitude for the day. Others sought calm in storytelling, reciting poetry, or listening to a lyre's gentle notes. Thus, Greek evenings balanced the practical with the poetic. Sleep was not simply approached, it was invited with grace. In China, evening preparations often focused on health. Warm teas infused with calming herbs, chrysanthemum lotus seed, or jujube sipped to quiet the body. Breathing exercises, slow and steady, aligned the rhythm of the lungs with the rhythm of night. Children were taught to wash before bed, not only for cleanliness, but to mark the transition between day-as activity and night-as rest. Candles or oil lamps were extinguished early, for lingering brightness was thought to disturb the natural rhythm of yin and yang. Before sleep, some whispered poems or sayings, affirmations of harmony and balance. In Taoist traditions, gentle meditations helped guide the spirit into dreams without turbulence. The Chinese night was marked by intention and flow, small acts that guided body, mind, and spirit into quiet alignment. Though separated by geographies, these ancient peoples shared similar insights. Cleansing. Egyptians washed dust from skin. Greeks ate lightly. Chinese drank soothing teas. Each culture sought to lighten the body. Offerings, prayers to gods, libations of wine, charms for protection each prepared the soul. Atmosphere, oils, music, incense, silent souls softened the environment for rest. In every corner of the ancient world, the period before bed was seen as a ritual space, not merely routine. Imagine the rhythm of one night as it unfolds across civilizations. An Egyptian priest rubs lotus oil into his hands and whispers a prayer to the goddess Hathor. A Greek philosopher puts away his scrolls, pours a single drop of wine onto the ground, and thanks the household spirits. A Chinese mother brews a cup of jujube tea, tucks her child beneath a canopy, and recites a short verse of calm. Different lands, different languages, different beliefs, yet all are joined by the same truth, that sleep deserves preparation, that rest is sacred enough to honor with ritual. As Julie Sten, perhaps you notice the echoes in your own life. A sip of tea, the act of dimming a lamp, a quiet thought before bed, these are not so different from the ways of the ancients. Sleep, then as now, is more than silence. It is a pasaje. When we close our eyes today, we often think of sleep as private, something that belongs to the individual. But in the ancient world, sleep was frequently shared by families, by communities, and by cultures at large. To understand how people slept is also to understand how they lived together. In most Egyptian households, space was limited. Families often slept close to one another, sometimes even in shared rooms or upon rooftops in summer. Privacy, as we think of it today, was rare. Children slept near parents, both for protection and warmth. Servants, in wealthier homes, might rest in nearby quarters, available should their masters call. For the Egyptians, this closeness was not seen as unusual, it was practical, even comforting. Sleep was a communal rhythm, tied to the cycles of work and the Nile. As the river gave life to the fields, so too did the household pulse together and rest. In Greece, sleep also reflected social structure. Within households, men and women sometimes had separate quarters, but families remained interconnected. Slaves often slept close to their masters, both to serve and to be supervised. In rural areas, shepherds and farmers often rested in shared spaces, guarding animals together, telling stories before sleep. In urban centers, walls were thin, streets alive with sound. To sleep was to be aware of neighbors, of the community breathing together through the night. And when festivals came, the boundaries blurred further. Entire groups might sleep outdoors, camped near sanctuaries, united in ritual vigil. Sleep was not always solitary, it was woven into the fabric of society. In China, families often shared sleeping platforms, especially in colder regions. A single raised bed might hold several members, with quilts or mats layered for warmth. Such closeness fostered not only comfort, but also the transmission of tradition, as elders told stories and recited wisdom before sleep. Even the timing of sleep could be communal. The division of night into watas was a social rhythm. Towns and villages were guided by bells or drums, marking when night guards took their posts, when lights should be dimmed, when silence should reign. Harmony extended beyond the individual body, it stretched across the household and the village. Sleep was part of the collective order, an alignment of many lives within the turning of yin and yang. Across these cultures, sleep revealed itself not only as a personal need, but as a social act. In Egypt, families rested together, bound by protection and ritual. In Greece, households and neighbors shaped one another's nights. In China, shared beds and communal rhythms reflected harmony. To lie down was to be part of something larger, a family, a community, a society breathing in unison beneath the stars. Even in public life, sleep carried meaning. Egyptians sometimes sought healing dreams in temples, surrounded by others doing the same. Greeks lay together in sanctuaries of Asclepius, seeking cures through shared incubation. Chinese scholars describe dream journeys not only for themselves, but for their disciples, teaching lessons drawn from the night. Sleep, in these ways, became a public act of culture, something displayed, shared, or interpreted within the wider world. On the banks of the Nile, a family sleeps upon their rooftop, cool breeze brushing over them. In a Greek village, neighbors' voices fade as oil lamps are extinguished, the whole street dimming into quiet. In a Chinese town, a drum signals the changing of the night watch, and families settle deeper under quilts, their breaths rising together in misty winter air. 3 lands, 3 ways of life, yet each tied together by a truth. Sleep belongs to us all, and in sleeping, we are never entirely alone. Sleep in the ancient world was thus intensely social. It bound families together, shaped the rhythm of villages, and echoed through rituals and festivals. Night was not only the silence of the body, it was the heartbeat of entire communities. In the next final batch of our journey, we will reflect on what these ancient rituals mean for us today, how the wisdom of Egyptians, Greeks, and Chinese might guide our own nights in the modern world. We have walked slowly through Egypt, Greece, and China, through temples and courtyards, over rooftops and into quiet chambers. We have seen how sleep was not simply the body's pause, but a sacred passage, a philosophical puzzle, a practice of harmony. Now, as we close this story, let us gather what these ancient nights may still whisper to us today. From Egypt, we inherit the sense that sleep can be more than routine. The Egyptians believed the soul wandered in the night, and thus the body required care, protection, and reverence. In our own lives, we may not place amulets at our bedside, but we can choose to honor sleep as something precious, to treat bedtime not as an afterthought, but as a moment of sacred transition, to create an environment where the soul feels safe to drift. From Greece, we receive the reminder that sleep invites both mystery and inquiry. The Greeks balanced myth with reason, treating dreams as both divine visions and natural workings of the mind. For us, this suggests that sleep can be a time of reflection, to notice the stories our dreams tell, to wonder gently at their meanings, without forcing answers, to remember that curiosity can coexist with rest, enriching rather than disturbing it. From China, we learn that sleep is part of a greater balance, to prepare the body with calm breath, with soothing tea, with careful attention to the environment, is to align oneself with the wider flow of life. For us, this means remembering that sleep is not separate from the day. It is shaped by our rhythms, our health, our harmony with the world around us. To care for sleep is to care for the whole self. Across all three civilizations, certain truths emerge, truths that remain timeless. Prepare for sleep with intention, whether through oils, prayers, or tea. Rituals matter. Respect the dream. Night visions are not empty, they are voices worth listening to. Honor the environment. Clean air, quiet spaces, symbols of comfort nurture rest. Remember sleep as connection to family, to community, to the greater mysteries of life. These lessons belong not only to the ancients, but to us as well. Imagine, tonight, preparing for sleep as they once did. Perhaps you sip a warm drink, as the Chinese did. Perhaps you dim the lights and reflect on your day, as the Greeks once did with their lamps and libations. Perhaps you place a small object near your bed, a book, a photograph, a sharmazi. Egyptians placed amulets, a quiet sign of protection. And then, as you lie down, you breathe deeply. You feel yourself part of the long human story, stretching back thousands of years. You rest in the knowledge that sleep has always been cherished, always honored, always awaited with care. So let this journey through ancient nights accompany your own. As the Egyptians, Greeks, and Chinese knew, sleep is not an interruption of life, it is a continuation, a passage, a healing. Close your eyes now, and know that in doing so, you join countless generations before you, who looked at the stars, whispered their prayers, quieted their breath, and surrendered to the same gentle mystery. May their wisdom guide your night, and may your sleep, like theirs, be filled with stillness, harmony, and dreams.